In addition to creating buttons just using Edge Animate, you can also import images such as JPEGs or PNG files. What we're going to do next is create just another document. We'll go ahead and import some images here. We're going to be using the arcade images for this particular file. So I'm going to do import. Let's do Command-I, Control-I on PC. And I'm going to bring in our over, up, I'm just holding down my Shift key, and down. And once I've brought all of those in, if you notice they're all selected and they're all stacked on top of each other. I actually set these up in Photoshop so they're all layered correctly. Now, while these are all still stacked on top of each other and they're lined up perfectly, I'm going to convert this to a symbol. I'm going to use my quick key, just doing Command Y, and we'll call this arcade underscore button. And I'm going to turn off my autoplay, and we'll click OK. Now, what I'm going to do next is, I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Let's go into our timeline for our arcade. Let's simply double click. And now we see all three layers here. And what I want to make sure we're doing, one, I'm going to turn off the auto transition, and I'm going to leave the auto keyframe on. Go ahead and select all of these here. And they're all by default set to what's referred to as always on. So I'm going to set them all to on right now. The first thing I want to do is set up our labels. So as we've done before, we'll do a label at the beginning for up. And we'll move this a little bit further ahead. And let's do another label for over. One last label for down. So what we're going to do is for each frame, the display, whether or not it's visible, is going to change. So for our up frame, the down button should be turned off and the over button should be turned off. Okay, so we'll move our playhead a little bit further. So the over frame, the down is off, the up should be off, and the over should be turned on. And next, for the down frame, I'm going to turn on down and to make sure everything else is set to off. So we have what our button looks like normal. The mouse rolls over, and if we press down. Okay, so we're pretty much set at this point, and the only thing left to do, we are going to add a little bit of control here. So we're going to create another layer just as our active area for the button, and we'll call this active. And again, this is just my preference. You can call it hit or target, but basically we are giving an element that's going to control how we move on the timeline. So I'm going to right click and let's come down to open the actions for our active element. And on mouse over, we'll have it stop at over. On mouse down, we'll have it stop at down. And on mouse up, we'll have this stop at up. And last but not least, on mouse out, we'll have this stop at up. All right, so we have our different elements going there. And what we want to do is set the visibility of our active layer to 0, and we'll turn our cursor to pointer. So now if we test our movie, Command Return, Control Enter on PC. Not bad. Now the only thing that's a little weird is we actually have everything highlighted, but it changes if we press down. So we can do this by simply editing our file real quick in the graphics program of our choice, whether you're using something like GIMP. I'm going to be using Photoshop. So I'm going to jump over to Photoshop real quick. And so we have our down button and we have it set up to still be highlighted. So let's save for web and we'll save over our down file and replace that. And so now if we test our movie, That's still doing something weird. So the way we'll edit our down PNG is we'll simply right click in our assets and we'll say reveal in Finder. And we'll go ahead and open this in Photoshop. And I'm going to simply duplicate this layer, Command J, and set this to screen. And we'll go ahead and merge this down and save and close. And let's go back over to Edge. So now if we test our movie, Command Return, roll over, down. And the only thing we'll change now is instead of this going back to up, we'll have this go to over if the cursor is still on top of the button. So we'll go to our actions, and on mouse up, we'll have this still stay at over. And there's our finished button. So by following pretty much the same principles of navigation using your code snippets, you can even bring in different bitmap elements or even other vector elements from other programs like Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape.